Welcome. A famous novelist wakes up after a devastating car crash. His legs are shattered. He's trapped in bed. And a stranger has just saved his life. At first, it feels like a miracle. The woman introduces herself as Annie Wilkes. She's warm, friendly, and incredibly excited to meet him. Because Paul Sheldon isn't just any patient, he's her favorite author. In fact, Annie claims she's his #1 fan. And for a while, that seems like a good thing. She brings him food, gives him medicine, helps him recover. But the longer Paul stays in the house, the more uncomfortable he becomes. Annie knows everything about him. Every book, every character, every detail of his career. And her admiration feels less like fandom and more like obsession. Then Annie discovers the manuscript Paul was carrying when he crashed. It's the unpublished novel he's just finished writing. Excited, she begins reading immediately. At first, she's thrilled. Then she reaches the ending, and everything changes. Because Paul has done something Annie cannot accept. He's killed off Misery, the character she loves more than anything. Suddenly, the cheerful fan disappears. Annie explodes in rage. She screams, throws the manuscript across the room, and for the first time, Paul sees who she really is. A woman whose grip on reality is far weaker than he realized. Then Paul notices something terrifying. The bedroom door is always locked. The phone is gone. His pain medication only appears when Annie decides he deserves it. And nobody knows where he is. He wasn't rescued. He was captured. Now Annie has a demand. She wants Misery back. Not in a future book. Not eventually now. So she brings Paul a typewriter, a stack of paper, and a simple choice. Write a new novel that brings Misery back to life, or stay trapped in this house forever. With no way to escape, Paul begins writing. Not because he wants to, because he's terrified. Every chapter becomes a survival strategy. Every page buys him another day, and while Annie reads, Paul starts planning. He studies the house, the locks, the hallways, anything that might help him get out alive. But Annie is always watching. One moment she's praising his work like a proud fan. The next she's furious over a single sentence. Paul never knows which version of Annie will walk through the door, and that's what makes her so dangerous. As the days pass, Annie becomes increasingly unstable. Her moods swing wildly. Her demands become impossible. And every failed attempt to escape makes the situation worse. Soon Paul realizes something horrifying. His greatest talent, the thing that made him famous, might be the only thing keeping him alive, so he keeps writing, not for his readers, not for his publisher, for Annie. Because as long as the story continues, so does he. Eventually, Paul finishes the novel Annie demanded. The book she has been waiting for. The book that brings Misery back from the dead. Annie is thrilled. For the first time in weeks, she lets her guard down, and Paul decides this is his only chance. He sets the manuscript on fire. Annie panics. She lunges for the pages, and a violent struggle erupts inside the bedroom. After weeks of manipulation, fear, and captivity, Paul finally fights back. The battle leaves Annie dead, and Paul free. But escaping the house doesn't end the nightmare. Months later, Paul is physically safe, yet Annie still haunts him. Every time he writes, every time he sits alone, every time he remembers what happened in that room, because Annie didn't just imprison him, she changed him. Misery remains one of Stephen King's most disturbing stories because its villain isn't a monster hiding under the bed. She's a fan who believes she owns the artist, and the most terrifying part? People like Annie can exist in the real world. Please like and subscribe for more short summaries.